Welcome to the deep dive, listeners. Seems like a lot of you have been delving into some really interesting research on sustainable buildings, specifically excerpts from Retrofitting and Electrification, transforming buildings for the future.
It's a hot topic.
It is. So we're here to kind of help you sift through all that information and pull out, like, the most valuable stuff.
Right.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll understand not just the key trends and challenges, but also the incredible opportunities this field holds. And trust me, this stuff is relevant to everyone, whether you're a homeowner, renter, or just someone who, cares about the future of our planet.
Yeah, it's a field that's changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
The amount of information out there, it could be overwhelming. But that's where we come in, to help you connect the dots and see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And speaking of the bigger picture, one trend that really jumps out from the research is like the unstoppable momentum of electrification. It's everywhere. Homes, businesses, like it's completely changing how we power our buildings.
Yeah. And it's not just a local thing. It's this global shift driven by, I think, a bunch of things coming together at once. The urgent need to get rid of carbon emissions, the rapid advancements in renewable energy technology, and all these new government incentives to push this transition.
It really does feel like the perfect storm, pushing us towards buildings powered cleanly and efficiently. But you know what I found interesting? The research highlights some regions that are actually ahead of the curve in this whole electrification race.
Oh, absolutely. In the U.S., California and New York are really leading the charge with some pretty progressive policies. And they've got ambitious targets for cutting those building emissions. And across the Atlantic, Germany and those Scandinavian countries are also paving the way, aggressively phasing out fossil fuels and switching to renewables. They're really showing that it's going to be done on a large scale and that you actually get economic and environmental benefits from doing it.
It's really cool to see those places setting an example, showing what's possible. But let's be real, the idea of switching entire building systems to electric can be pretty daunting, especially for people with older homes or buildings.
That's a really important point. Designing new buildings with sustainability in mind is great, but the real challenge is retrofitting existing structures.
Yeah.
And the research is pretty honest about the obstacles. You probably saw some of that.
I have to say, reading through those excerpts, I could practically feel the frustration of anyone dealing with outdated infrastructure. Like old wiring, not enough panel capacity, structural problems. It can feel like an impossible obstacle course.
Yeah, those are real challenges. But the good news is they're not impossible to overcome.
Okay.
And the important thing to remember is that retrofitting isn't just about, bringing older buildings up to code.
Right.
It's about taking those buildings and making them even better than before.
Okay, I like that. So tell me, how do we turn these roadblocks into opportunities?
Well, let's start with the wiring and electrical panels. Those are often the first things that hold you back when you're trying to electrify an older building. It's kind of like upgrading the building's nervous system. It needs to be strong enough to handle all those modern appliances and systems.
So it's not just swapping out a few light bulbs.
No, it's much bigger than that. You're creating a whole new electrical backbone for the building.
Wow.
And then there are the structural limitations. You might not have the space or the structural strength to add things like solar panels on the roof, so you have to get creative.
Yeah.
You integrate solar into the walls, or you use those community solar programs, or you can even look into some of the new technologies like building integrated photovoltaics.
It sounds like retrofitting requires a whole different way of thinking. You have to take a holistic approach that looks at the building's unique characteristics and limitations.
Exactly. And that leads us to something really crucial that your research highlights: the importance of smart energy management systems.
I've seen that term a lot, but honestly, I'm still not quite sure what it means in practice.
Well, imagine a system that acts like a conductor for all the energy being used in your building.
Okay.
It orchestrates all the different parts, like the lighting, the heating and cooling, the appliances, even charging stations for electric vehicles.
So you're creating a more intelligent building that optimizes energy use in real time.
That's it. It's like having a built-in energy expert constantly monitoring and adjusting everything to, cut waste and save money. It could be things like sensors that adjust lighting and temperature based on whether someone's in the room, or those smart thermostats that learn your preferences.
Starting to get it. But what about the cost? Retrofitting a whole building sounds incredibly expensive.
It's true that the initial costs can be high, but this is where the research gets really interesting. It digs into the financial benefits of those green building certifications.
Oh, right. LED, well, Energy Star, are those fancy badges?
It's-
But beyond making you feel good, how do those actually translate into real benefits for building owners?
Those certifications are much more than just marketing. They can actually unlock a ton of financial incentives, like lower insurance premiums, access to better loans with lower interest rates, and even tax breaks.
So they can really offset the cost of retrofitting.
Definitely. And that's not even counting the money you'll save in the long run from using less energy.
Right.
There's another thing your research mentions that's especially relevant to you, with your interest in real estate.
I'm all ears.
Green building certifications can really boost the value of a property.
Mm.
Today's buyers and renters, they're much more environmentally conscious, and they're willing to pay more for sustainable, healthy spaces.
So it's not just saving money on bills, it's actually a good investment that pays off later.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key takeaway from your research. The opportunities this shift towards sustainable buildings creates for electrical contractors.
I hadn't really thought about that. It's easy to get caught up in the environmental and financial benefits and forget about the people who are actually making it all happen.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle. All this electrification is creating a whole new world of opportunities for electrical contractors.
How so?
Well, think about it. The demand for expertise in installing those EV charging stations, putting in solar panels, upgrading electrical panels, and setting up smart energy management systems, it's all exploding.
It sounds like a whole new frontier opening up with tons of possibilities for those who are prepared.
Precisely. And your research even goes into some strategies for electrical contractors to tap into this growing market. Things like offering more services, getting specialized certifications, and investing in training to stay ahead of the curve.
It sounds like the electrical contracting industry is going through a massive transformation. The ones who are adaptable, innovative, and constantly learning will be the winners.
For sure. And this brings me to a really crucial point. This whole shift towards sustainable buildings, it's not just about technology and economics. It's about a fundamental change in mindset.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's about recognizing that our buildings aren't just structures. They're an extension of ourselves, of our values. And as our understanding of sustainability evolves, so too must our approach to designing and building.
So it's about going beyond just doing less harm and striving to actually create buildings that contribute to a healthier, more equitable, and more resilient world.
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so exciting and so challenging. It's not just about technical solutions. It's about reimagining our relationship with the built environment and creating a future where buildings aren't just sustainable, they're actually regenerative.
That's a powerful thought, and I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here. We'll be right back to dive deeper into the fascinating world of healthy buildings.
Welcome back. I hope you guys are ready to dive into something that's often overlooked when it comes to sustainable buildings, but it's absolutely crucial, the human element.
Oh, that's interesting. I have to admit, I sometimes get so focused on all the tech stuff like energy efficiency and renewables that I kind of forget about the people who actually live and work in these spaces.
It's easy to do that, but it's really important to remember that there's no point in building sustainable buildings if they don't actually make life better for the people inside.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's where the whole idea of healthy buildings comes in. It's about shifting our focus from just reducing a building's environmental impact to actually making sure it promotes health, comfort, and productivity for the occupants.
Okay, I like that. But healthy building seems like a pretty broad term. What exactly makes building healthy?
That's a great question. And it's something that architects, designers, and engineers are really starting to grapple with as we try to get a more holistic view of sustainability. One of the most basic things is indoor air quality. We spend so much of our lives indoors, so the air we breathe inside has a huge impact on our health.
I hadn't really thought about that before. We're so worried about outdoor air pollution, but what about the air in our homes and offices where we spend hours every day?
It's a big deal. And your research goes into some of the key things that contribute to healthy indoor air. First off, ventilation. You got to make sure you're bringing in fresh air from outside and filtering out pollutants.
So it's not just about sealing buildings up tight to save energy.
Right, you need a balance between efficiency and fresh air.
Makes sense.
And ventilation is only part of it. Controlling humidity is also really important. If a building's too dry, you can get respiratory problems and skin irritation. But if it's too humid, you get mold, which can trigger allergies and other issues.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, right? Not too dry, not too humid. What else makes a building healthy?
Access to natural light is huge. We humans are wired to be connected to the natural world, and natural light plays a big role in regulating our sleep cycles, our moods, even our hormones and immune system.
I know, I always feel more awake and focused when I'm working in a space with lots of natural light. It makes a huge difference.
Exactly. It reminds us that we're not just machines meant to live under artificial light. We thrive when we're connected to nature. And that connection goes beyond just light. Bringing elements of nature into buildings, things like plants, water features, natural materials, can really impact our well-being.
That reminds me of something I read about called biophilic design. It seems like that's becoming a bigger trend in sustainable building.
Biophilic design is more than just a trend. It's recognizing how deeply nature affects our physical and mental health. And your research actually highlights some really cool examples of how these principles are being used in real projects. Like, for example, the Bosco Vertical, those amazing residential towers in Milan.
Oh, yeah, the vertical forest. I've seen pictures of those buildings covered in trees and plants. They look incredible.
They are. And they're not just pretty to look at. All those trees and plants act as a giant air filter, cleaning the air and releasing oxygen. They also help regulate temperature, reduce noise, and just create a sense of calm right in the middle of a busy city.
It's amazing how we can bring nature right into our cities like that. Are the benefits of biophilic design scientifically proven?
Oh, absolutely. Tons of studies show that even small doses of nature can have a big positive impact on our health and well-being. Less stress, better brain function, improved mood, even increased creativity.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So we've talked about air quality, natural light. What else contributes to a healthy building?
Your research goes into a bunch of other important factors. Thermal comfort, for one. Making sure a building stays at a comfortable temperature isn't just about comfort, it's about productivity too. Extreme temperatures can make people tired, mess with their focus, and even cause health problems.
So it's about finding that balance where people don't feel too hot or too cold.
Right. And what that ideal temperature is can vary depending on the person, what they're doing, and even cultural norms. A well-designed building takes all that into account and gives people some control over their environment, like adjustable thermostats or windows that open.
I like the idea of giving people that control. It moves away from the one-size-fits-all approach and recognizes that everyone's different.
Exactly. And that same idea applies to another important part of healthy buildings, acoustics. Too much noise can be incredibly stressful and distracting, making it hard to concentrate, sleep, and just feel good.
Oh, I know that feeling. Trying to work in a noisy office is the worst.
It is. The research you've been reading talks about how architects and designers are trying to cut down on noise in buildings. They use sound-absorbing materials, think about where they put walls, and even incorporate natural elements like plants and water features to mask unwanted sounds.
It's like they're designing a soundscape that helps people focus, relax, and be creative. It's pretty cool how air quality, light, temperature, and even sound all work together to create a truly supportive environment.
And there's one more thing your research touches on that I want to mention: ergonomics. It's all about making sure spaces are comfortable for our bodies and don't put us at risk for aches and pains.
I can see how that would be super important in offices where people spend a lot of time sitting at desks.
Absolutely. It's not just about having the right chairs and desks.
Yeah.
You have to think about the lighting, glare, even where computer screens are placed to prevent eye strain and encourage good posture.
It's about creating a workspace that supports both physical and mental well-being.
Exactly. And all these things we've talked about, air quality, light, temperature, acoustics, ergonomics, they're not just nice extras anymore. They're becoming essential parts of sustainable building.
It's exciting to see this shift, but it also seems like it would make things more complicated for the people designing and building these spaces. How are they keeping up with all these evolving standards?
That's where those green building certifications come in again. You already know about LEED, WELL, and Energy Star, but what's interesting is how they're changing to reflect this more holistic view of sustainability.
So they're not just about energy efficiency and saving resources anymore. Now they're also focused on the health and well-being of the people inside.
Exactly. Take the WELL building standard, for example. It's completely focused on health and well-being in buildings. It looks at everything: air and water quality, light, temperature, even things like access to healthy food, opportunities for exercise, and mental health support.
Wow, that's really impressive. It's like a blueprint for building a truly healthy and supportive environment.
It really is. It shows how important it is that our buildings have a positive impact on our health and well-being, and that sustainable design needs to consider both the planet and the people.
It's inspiring to see those certifications pushing the boundaries and raising the bar for the whole industry. But are there any downsides to all this? Any challenges with this shift towards healthy buildings?
That's a good question. It's important to be realistic. While the benefits are clear, there are some challenges that need to be addressed.
Okay, let's talk about those. What are some of the hurdles we need to be aware of?
One of the biggest concerns is the cost. Adding all of these health-focused features can make a building project more expensive, especially if you're retrofitting an older building.
Yeah, I can see that. It's easy to get excited about the benefits, but then run into a financial wall.
Absolutely. That's where government incentives, financing programs, and creative funding models come in. We're seeing more and more programs to help building owners make these upgrades because people are realizing that the long-term benefits to health and the environment are worth the initial investment.
That's good to hear. It sounds like there's real momentum behind this, and the financial side is starting to get figured out. What other challenges are there?
Another potential issue is the complexity of these projects. Integrating all those elements, the air quality, lighting, acoustics, ergonomics, it requires a lot of coordination and expertise.
So it's not as simple as just finding someone to install energy-efficient windows or solar panels. You need a whole team of specialists who understand healthy building design.
Exactly. It takes a much more integrated approach to building design with architects, engineers, contractors, and even health professionals all working together.
It sounds like a big challenge, but ultimately a really rewarding one. And I'm curious to see how these principles are being put into practice in real-world projects. All right, so let's switch gears a bit and check out some actual examples of buildings that are really pushing the limits of what's possible with sustainable design.
Yeah, I love this part.
Me too.
It's one thing to talk about all these concepts, but actually seeing them in action in these amazing buildings, it's really inspiring.
Totally. It shows what we can achieve when we put our minds to it.
Definitely.
So there's one project that really stuck with me from the research, the Bullitt Center in Seattle. It's been called one of the greenest commercial buildings in the world, even got the nickname the Living Building. What makes it so special?
Well, the Bullet Center is different because it doesn't just try to reduce its impact. It's designed to be completely self-sufficient, like an ecosystem.
Yeah.
It makes all its own energy from solar panels. It collects and treats its own water, even composts its waste on site. It's like a building that actually breathes and lives like a natural organism.
That's incredible. So it's not just sustainable, it's regenerative. It gives back more than it takes. But what about the people who work there? Are they comfortable?
That's a great question. And the Bullet Center really nails it on that front, too. It's not just about being eco-friendly. It's also about creating a space that's healthy and inspiring for the people inside.
Okay, good.
They have tons of natural light, fresh air ventilation, even a rooftop garden where they can grow their own food.
It sounds amazing. It really proves that sustainability and human well-being can go together.
Absolutely. And the Bullet Center is just one example. Sustainable design is taking off all over the world. Another one that I find really interesting is the Bosco Verticale in Milan.
Oh, yeah, the vertical forest. And I've seen pictures, those towers covered in plants and trees. It's like something out of a movie.
It's pretty incredible. They have over 900 trees and something like 20,000 plants on those towers.
Yeah.
A whole forest in the middle of the city.
It's so cool. But besides looking awesome, what are the benefits of that?
Oh, there are a bunch. All those plants clean the air, absorb noise, and even help regulate the temperature inside the buildings. So you need less energy for heating and cooling.
It's like a perfect example of biophilic design, right? Showing how we can bring nature into our cities in a way that's beautiful and beneficial.
Exactly. And it's not just happening with these big famous projects. Sustainable building practices are being used everywhere, from single-family homes to community centers to whole neighborhoods.
That's great to hear. It means this movement is really gaining momentum. We're seeing a real shift towards a more sustainable future all over the world.
For sure. And as you keep learning about sustainable buildings, I encourage you to look for examples in your own community. You might be surprised what you find.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes we focus on the big picture and forget to look around us.
Absolutely. The more we get involved locally, the more we can contribute to a better future.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've talked about electrification and retrofits, how to design healthy buildings, and seen some incredible examples from around the world.
It's been a great conversation. Hopefully it's given you some food for thought and some inspiration to keep learning.
Yeah, definitely. Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We've talked about all the challenges and opportunities, the innovation and creativity in this field. But ultimately, the future of sustainable buildings is up to all of us.
It really is. We all have to make conscious choices, demand better buildings, and support the people who are working towards a more sustainable future.
Whether you're a homeowner, a renter, a builder, or just someone who cares about the planet, we can all play a part in this.
Absolutely. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing for a better, more sustainable world.
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.